I'm getting ready for some fall sewing, and it feels so like fall where we live in Kansas right now. It's just beautiful. You wake up in the mornings, it's crisp out, there's a nice fog. Love it. Love everything about it. So I'm pulling out this, and you might have seen this in a haul a while back, and it's just a sweatshirt knit. It's heathered, has a little bit of a stripe to it from the heathering, and I have over 3 yards, which is perfect to make this little top. So this is Burda 6401. Not a lot to it. Going to be fast. This is a one-day sew for sure. Now this pattern is meant for a woven, and so it has a zipper in the back, but I'm doing it out of a stretchy knit. It's not super stretchy, but this is a stretchy sweatshirt knit. So I'm not going to need the zipper in the back because of that. The fabric will give. Mostly going to be serged together. This should go really fast, and I don't even have to do any alterations. And I'm super thrilled because I can wear it like a little dress, put some leggings under it, wear a pair of boots, wear it all winter. It'll be super comfy. We will add a pocket because a pocket is a necessity. So let's head out and cut it out and sew it up. Burda patterns usually put your cutting layout in the tissue. So when you're cutting apart your pieces, you want to preserve this, which is your cutting layout, and this, which is your size chart. So I always cut those out independently, fold them up, put them back in the envelope so they're preserved for the next time we use it. Let's talk about gathers, fitting, and the skirt style and some of that stuff. So I have refolded. I have 60-inch wide fabric, and I've refolded it to be wide enough to get the biggest pieces in. Just to save my fabric, I have more than I need, so I'm going to have a strip down here of excess that I can use for something else. And so this is the sleeve ruffle. This is the back skirt. The back skirt is meant to be cut 2, and here you can see the seam allowance. I'm cutting this out of knit. I'm not going to have a seam down the back of this garment because of the knit, so I'm only cutting 1. I could move this over the 5/8 inch, which would take out 1 1/4 inch total in the back of the garment, but because of how I'm built, I'm always happy to have a little extra fullness in the back because that's where my fullness is. So I'm going to leave in that little bit of extra and gather it. But when you compare down here, here's my skirt front and my skirt back. You can see the 5/8 inch difference. So the garment designer, the pattern maker, planned for the front and the back to be the same width when gathered on. So I'm just telling you, I'm not going to have that. I'm going to have a little tiny bit extra in the back, which for me is what I need. So that's how this is going to get cut out. After I cut these skirt pieces out, I'm going to refold this so that I have folds across from each other, and I'm just going to cut out these 2 pieces. I'm going to go ahead and put the sleeve down here below all this, and then I will be cut out and we'll be ready to head over. Oh, the other thing I'm not cutting out, this has a bias strip to go around the neckline in the zipper area, which I will not be doing. I'm going to do this in a traditional sort of rib knit look. I'm not using rib knit, I'm using this. It's going to be self-faced, but sort of like a crew neck you would on a t-shirt or something. I'm going to do that method instead for the neckline. Now that I'm cut out, let me just show you. I'll roll over here and grab my pattern pieces. I cut out 1 pocket. It's a pair of pockets to put on the right side because I'm right-handed and I like to put my phone on the right side, so I have 1 little pair of pockets. You could cut out 2 if you want even. And then I went ahead and cut out a little neck band to go around, and I think I cut it about the right length. This is not super stretchy fabric. It does stretch, but not a ton, but it's enough that I don't need to put in a zipper and I can slip it over my head, which was really my only concern. The other thing that I noticed, I'm going to just talk to you about really quick, on this sleeve, I'm doing view B. And on the pattern piece for view B, look at this, it says fold line for hem right here, but view B has a ruffle at the bottom and you gather the ruffle on. So I'm not exactly sure why it's like this because the directions just say, you know, make your sleeve, make your ruffle, gather the ruffle, attach it at the bottom and sew it on. And this has got, it looks like about 1 1/4 inch hem turn up right here, and it's only supposed to be 5/8, so I'm not sure why it's that way. It doesn't quite match, so we'll either have to trim off a little bit or straighten out this side, because can you see how it's meant to flare out? It's meant to flare out so that it matches when it's folded up, but we're gathering a ruffle onto it. I'm not exactly sure hem pull one. I'm not sure why it's that way, unless you wanted to do just a plain short sleeve, which it does not show on the picture or in the pattern anywhere, but you could. You could totally make this without the ruffle and just hem it. That's great. View A has a little sleeve band on it and is set up differently. So I'm confused by that, but it's not going to make it difficult for us to sew. We're just going to kind of ignore it and keep going. So because I'm not doing a zipper in the back, I'm sewing this a little differently than the direction. First thing I'm going to do is put it together, the shoulder seams, and then if I want to, I can go ahead and just finish off the little neckline with my my facing piece. It's not really a facing, it's sort of like a ribbing the way I'm treating it, and it makes it look like a crew neck, kind of like what I'm wearing here. This is actual ribbing and it's stretchy, but it just will fill in the neckline. And one thing I like about that is the neckline on this garment, which you can see right back here, is kind of wide, and because I'm going to fill that in a little bit with that neck piece, so it'll take in the neckline just a little bit and make it a little just a little smaller, which I would prefer for me. So those are, I'm changing that right away. So I'm going to go ahead and just serge my shoulder seams. If you're at the sewing machine, just set it for your small little zigzag and zigzag it. Put the edge of your cut edge of your fabric at 5/8 and zigzag it together. If you're at the serger or the overlock, it has 5/8 inch seam allowance, so you will be losing a little bit of your seam allowance when you overlock the two pieces together. So I'm going to put my front to my back and do my shoulder seams, and we'll be back. Here we are, shoulder seams. I'm showing you the inside. I'm going to go ahead now and just do the side seams the exact same way, and I'm going to have a little bodice put together, and then I think I will go ahead and put my little neckline on. So to do the neckline, I've measured the neckline of the garment, and I've cut a little piece, and I'm just going to double check it really quick. A little piece that's a little bit smaller by about 2 inches. And we're just going to serge that together, and you just want to make sure that it will go over your head. That's always important, because the way this, even though this is a wide neckline, it's high and wide this way. So you want to make sure that it will go over your head and that it will stretch when you're doing this. If you choose, there are knits that don't stretch at all. They're super stable, and it would not work for this. You would have to do the traditional way, put in the bias, put in the zipper, etc. to get it on. Because I have some stretch, it could be a t-shirt knit, which is super stretchy, and then you don't have to worry at all. So I'm gonna serge this little neckline real quick. And then, I do this a lot. You've probably seen this in a few videos. We take our little circle, and we fold it in half so the right side is out. And I always take wherever my seam is, that's going to become my center back. So I will match that up to the center back of my neck, and then I'll find the center front and match that up. Just pin it in and serge it around. You could serge this at 5/8 or at 1/4 inch. That's really up to you. It depends on how wide you want your little neck to be and how enclosed you want it to be. And your neckline is done. So I'm going to go ahead and set in my neckline and do my side seams, and then we'll be back to work on the skirt. So here's our little top with the little neckline. You can see how it fills in the neck nicely, and I did slip it over my head to make sure everything fits fine. You can see the top's pretty wide. And I noticed when I was cutting this out that the top of the bodice, let me say that again, the front of the bodice curves down a little bit, and it kind of looks like the front of your shirt's going to be longer, but if you have any bust line at all, that curve actually helps. The curve is sort of an adjustment for the fullness of the bust so that your hemline will stay straight at the bottom. So it's actually important. Now if you're completely, if you don't need that, I do. I have enough bust line that when this goes over the bust line, that actually straightens back out. So you can see it doesn't look like it curves down at all. So we're ready now to go on to skirt. I think you could do sleeve next or skirt. You could really do either one. I think we'll go ahead and get the skirt going, and we're going to, because I'm putting in a pocket, I'm going to sew together the skirt on the left side. So I'm going to go ahead and just sew the left seam together completely, and then we'll do the right side with the pocket inserted in it. So I'm going to go ahead and put those pieces together. So the left side is just going to get serged. The right side I'm going to serge on the little pocket end on each side, line them up, and then serge around the pocket and down. And then I'll come back and just straight stitch a little bit below and above the pocket to make it flat so that it lays nice. Because if you just serge around it, you can kind of get where they meet, where that curve is, it cannot lay as flat and pretty, and it can actually kind of look like there's a pocket hiding in there, which I don't want. And then I'll have to see where that hits, because I know I want the pocket in the hip area, but sometimes if the pocket's low and there's nothing stabilizing the top of the pocket, it pulls. And I did this on another video where I made the pretty yellow and blue dress. There's a lot to it, but I put pockets in that one, and I actually did a little trick where I hang the front edge of that pocket where there's no seam to catch it in. I hang it from a little piece of ribbon. So I may do the same thing on this. So there's a lot of talking. Now I'm gonna get to sewing. I'm going to show you, let's see, how do I want to do this? Okay, here's the front of my skirt. I have the pink pin for the front and the blue pin for the back. And I've serged together one side seam. So when this is flipped around, this will be my left side. And here's the right side. And I've put, I've attached one pocket to each, to a front, one to the back, right sides together. And now I'm ready to, I'm going to just serge down across the pocket, around the bottom, all the way down to the side. And then I'll come back next to the serging and I will straight stitch right here. I'll come down just a little bit into the pocket, and I'll make it nice and flat here, and I'll do the same thing here. It's just a short little area of straight stitching, and all that's going to do is just make it nice and flat from the outside. And I am going to go ahead and attach a little ribbon, which will have to be done at the very end. After the garment's put together, we'll put the little ribbon in, and I will show you a little close-up of that. And the ribbon is just to make the pocket hang nice and support the weight of whatever you put in it. It's really handy to do that in a knit like this, where the pocket isn't suspended from a waistline seam, because knits pull anyway, and you put your heavy phone in a soft knit and it pulls the skirt and it won't hang nice and it's gonna not look good. But if you help stabilize that, you give a little support with a nice little piece of grosgrain or satin ribbon or something like that, it will not hang, it will not pull on that side seam. It'll look a lot better. So serging this, after I've serged the side seam, I'm going to come back and just go around the hem. You could, and I was considering it, but I don't think I'm going to, you could, if you have a serger that does a cover stitch, you could hem this with the cover stitch. And I was back and forth in my head about it. I've decided I'm not going to. I think I'm just going to do it at this sewing machine, just a regular hem. So I'm going to go ahead and serge the hem of this and do this, and then we'll be ready to do gathering stitches and attach our skirt to our bodice. Here's a little close-up of where the pocket and the skirt are joined, and you can see how it kind of veers out right there. I'm going to come in and just about ½ an inch down, I'm going to just straight stitch right up here next to that stitching, and that is going to give a much better effect. And you can see it's not much, but it just has a slight little V out. This is where my actual stitching is. This is where it's attached, and we want to make that nice and smooth. From the outside, so this is where my pocket is, and you can just see how that makes the pocket disappear. Going to do the same thing down at the bottom. So here's the bottom of the pocket right now. Not beautiful, and it doesn't hang quite right. And you can see when I pull it flat, it doesn't quite lay as flat. It's pretty close, but not quite. It has a little bit of a, I don't know what to say. It's just, you can just tell it's a little, it indents a little bit there. And so we're going to come in and do the same thing I did up here. See how nice and straight that lays now? Going to do the same thing down here because we want the pocket to just look like a seam until we go to use it. So here's my skirt, got my little pocket in, and now I'm going to come in, and you can see, oh, I hope, sometimes the light, which is great back here, washes out. So right here is where I curved off, and I'm going to come in right in my old stitching, and I'm just going to straight stitch down a little bit on the pocket here at the top and at the pocket on the bottom. And that's just going to make it look nice from the outside. This other side's completely done. I've serged my hem. So what I'm going to do now, and you can see I have little pins that mark my centers just to make life easy, and I have a pink pin for the front and a blue pin for the back, which is the same thing, which I did, and I did the same thing for the bodice. So when I go to match it up, I'll put pink pin to pink pin and blue pin to blue pin. And so now I'm going to just do my gathering stitches. So to do a gathering stitch, you don't backstitch. Set your machine for a long straight stitch. So on my machine, it has a very long stitch. So you want to be at least a 4. I'm doing 4.5, and you're going to do 2 rows. For the best outcome, do 2 rows. 1 row of straight stitching, and you're going to go from seam to seam. So we're not going to cross our seam. So we're going to go from left seam all the way across the front to the right, and the same with the back. And we'll have little tails. Our little tails will hang out. Don't clip your tails off. We need those for gathering. We're going to do 1 line of stitching at the 5/8 and the other line at either 3/8 or 1/4 of an inch, somewhere in there. And that just makes us have, it gives us more opportunity to get the best evenly spaced gathering we can when we do it that way. So I'm going to run both of my basting stitches, and then it'll be time to start pinning pinning bodice to skirt and evening out our stitches, and I'll show you some close-ups of that so you can see how it looks, and then we'll stitch it on. And this will get stitched on at the sewing machine, and then I will come back and serge the raw edge. So I'm going to have a 5/8 inch seam in there. I don't want to serge off all the seam allowance at the waist. I want a little extra. And I will most likely put some elastic in there. There's no elastic on the pattern. It doesn't call for it. I'm not trying to gather it in really tight, but this is something that I know about myself and about how the clothing fits me. Anything that just hangs like a sack on me is less flattering. And I'm a curvy girl. I have more of an hourglass figure. And if I can have anything that slightly pulls in the waist, it doesn't have to pull it in all the way to my waist, just a little bit of tucking in is much more flattering on me, and it'll still hang, but it'll just gather in a little bit. So I almost always will just take a little piece of elastic after the garment's made and just zigzag it to that inside extra seam allowance. And I have a feeling I'm going to do that again. I've done that on a lot of the garments I've made. I've made them and I've showed you, and then I've come back and added that, and I need to just do a little update video on how many times I've actually gone in and altered after I've sewn, because almost everything, you wear it for a few times and you go like, oh, I want to tweak this a little bit, which I often do. So we're going to have to do an update video someday, but not today. I'll be back in a minute to add our skirt to our bodice once the gathering lines are in. I've pinned on and gathered my skirt. So this is the bodice side. This is the skirt side. It's not super gathered. It's not the 2-to-1 ratio or whatever. It's not nearly as big as that. So let me just hold this up. This is the width, and you can see here's my little pocket hanging down. So that's the skirt. Skirt's on the outside, bodice is on the inside. I'm just going to straight stitch around with the sewing machine or do a tiny, tiny zigzag at the 5/8 inch, and then I will serge the very edge to make it nice and flat. And then I will have a bodice on the skirt, and I'll be ready to start my sleeve. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go ahead and the ruffle part of the sleeve, I'm going to go ahead and serge that little seam together and finish off its hem just like I did on the skirt. And then on the top of the sleeve, we're used to our little notches. This one doesn't quite have notches. It has just little straight lines. So there's one up here at the top that's for your sleeve cap, for your shoulder seam, and then there's one, the back sleeve has a little notch. We're ready to put the sleeve together. So I'm going to go ahead, attach the skirt. I'm going to go ahead and serge the underarm of the sleeve and the underarm of the ruffle, and we'll be back. Already so cute. Loving it, loving it, loving it. Adorable. Needs a haircut. But look at my pocket. Perfect. I'm super pleased. Let's go ahead and work on sleeve. You could at this point, because I've already done that, you could hem it if you want to. Hem it before you move on. And with the sleeve, once you've sewn that underarm seam, you could turn it up and hem that sleeve ruffle too, if you want to have it pre-hemmed before you ever attach it. So that's one nice thing about working with these kinds of projects. If you don't need to change the length, to try it on and change the length, you know the length it is the length you're going with. Go ahead and put that hem in and get it done. So I have a sleeve, and I double checked the notches in the front on the sleeve. So that helps you know your front from your back. So I have my little sleeve stitched, and here is my little ruffle, and I went ahead and turned up and hemmed it. So it's ready to go. And I want to show you the difference between the sleeve and the ruffle so you can see how much gathering you have. So this is the sleeve and this is the ruffle. So this is the amount extra that we have that's going to go into the gather. Now I believe it just shows you sort of evenly gathering it around. I will tell you that you do not usually want a ton of gathers under the arm. Like, it's better to have them over or on the top part of the arm if you need to move gathers around. So if you're going to do this, you could actually even squish all the gathers just at the top part of the arm, kind of in the center of this top of the sleeve if you wanted to. It's totally a design thing. It's up to you. Or you can carefully make them even all the way around. It's not a lot of gather, so it's not going to be like a real full ruffle. It's just going to be a slight variation, a slight gather, so you get a little bit of fullness, a little flounce at the bottom of the sleeve. So I'm going to go ahead and do my basting stitches and pin those on and stitch it. It's going to go just like the skirt. I'm going to straight stitch it on first at the 5/8, then serge it at the other end, at the cut edge of the seam allowance, just to make it nice and tidy. And then we'll be ready to set the sleeve in. I'm going to go ahead and, while my machine's still set for that same straight stitch before I do my gathering, I'm going to go ahead and hem my skirt too. So I'm going to get that skirt hemmed real quick, and then we'll be back to set in sleeves. Quick little close-up of the sleeve. This is the flounce side. This is the sleeve side, so you can see not super gathered on there, and I'm just pinning it on, and I'm just working out my little gathers to make it nice and even. And then right here under the arm, I don't have any. I've just made it pretty flat in that little spot right under the arm, and then I've evened out, and I'm working the rest of the gathers around the rest of the sleeve. Isn't that pretty? Oh, it feels so nice. I am definitely going to be living in this winter with a pair of leggings. So cute. And I love the little flounce, just right. So we're ready to pin it in. Here's my dress. I've hemmed it. It's all ready to go. I did give this a quick press. Just make sure when you press something like this that you test it and do a little test to make sure that it's not going to be too hot if you have some synthetic. Okay, I'm looking to see front from back on my sleeve, and we're just going to match underarm of sleeve to underarm of dress. Here's my little armhole, my arm size, so I'm going to just match these up to each other. Underarm to underarm, and then I have a marking for shoulder, so we're going to match shoulder to shoulder. Start pinning in, sew it in, and the dress is done. So I'm going to go ahead and sew both of these sleeves in. These are a set-in sleeve. There's no gathers in it or anything like that. It's a nice flat sleeve, so it'll go in really easy, especially in this knit. Knit is such a dream to sew in for things like this. And always with a sleeve, the underarm part under here, it will fit perfectly, sleeve to bodice, so you don't have any fullness to worry about. So we'll pin that in like to like, and then if there's any easing, it'll be in the cap up here. But on this, it's going to go in like a breeze. So I'll be back in a minute with a finished dress. The dress is done. I see it needs a haircut. So I have a dress. It's all finished. Look at the cute sleeve. I'm going to now go to the inside, and I'm going to put a little elastic around this waist, and I'm going to put in my ribbon for the pocket. So let me find my pocket. Here's my pocket. And I want to make sure that I pull it to the front and not the back. So here's the front. Okay. So here's my pocket right here. And I'm just going to take a little piece of ribbon, and I'm going to sew it to this. And it's going to be the length. Let me let this hang so you can kind of see. So here is the top of my pocket, and here's my waist. So I need a piece of ribbon about this long, and I'm just going to stitch it to both ends, and that's going to support my pocket and make it work great. And then I'm also going to go ahead and just put some elastic around. I'm not making the elastic my waist. It's going to be bigger than that, but enough to just pull it in a little bit to give the dress a little more shape. So this is a little more flattering for me. So I'm going to do both of those things. When I do the elastic, I literally just use a 1/4 inch elastic. I just stretch it a little bit as I go, and I just zigzag the edge of the elastic to the edge of the seam allowance on the waist seam. That's it. So I'm going to do both of those things, and I'm going to try it on and show you how cute it is. This is what the inside looks like after I've added the elastics. You can see I pulled it in quite a bit, but it's still bigger than my waist. Here's the pocket with the little piece of ribbon. I've just turned it under and zigzagged it. And I made sure not pull it too tight, that there's plenty of room in here, and made it this ribbon length about the same as the drop from the waist to where the pocket starts. All right, I'm gonna go try it on. I love it. I want 25 more of them. This is so soft and comfy and easy to wear. I'm I don't think I would change anything this go around. I'm pleased. I like the length. I like the elastic I added. I love the sleeve length. I'm super happy it has a pocket. I think it's cute. I like everything about it. I put it with a cute little boot and a legging, but I could see wearing this around the house all day long with my little, I have some little Ugg boot slipper things, and it's so comfy and it's wash and wear. It's sweatshirt fleece. So I think if you want to make it like I did out of a sweatshirt fabric and skip the zipper and all the bias and really simplify it, this is a great pattern and definitely wearable. We'll make more, I'm sure, of this. See you next week for another fun video.